Thanks, Peter. I would say after witnessing the last couple of sessions, you always think the closer's easy. Most people will leave, they'll be tired by then. I'm noticing a fair bit of passion in the room, and I think that's great. But you only want to be a closer when you're like 2 or 3 runs ahead, and I'm not so sure after having regulators on the stage. One thing I've learned today, if you're going to sit beside a politician and they talk to you about the things they believe, don't nod and smile sympathetically because he assumes that you're on his side. He was suggesting a number of times, Minister Wilkinson, that I had agreed, and I just smiled politely actually. So next time I'll know to speak up. I want to thank Advocis for inviting me to participate in today's meeting. It looks like I was only here since about lunchtime, but it looks like it's been a very strong agenda and offering a lot of relevant topics to the people in the room here today. I would make one comment, and I don't want to sort of steal what I was going to talk about and respond to what I heard for the last hour or so, but I heard a lot about education and development and evolution in the industry, and I truly do believe that education, development, professionalism are at the core of what you do every day and what we do as an industry every day. But I do want to remind everybody, at least from my perspective, that what makes financial security planners and financial planners successful is bringing people to action. And a 4-year university degree is good and important in terms of professional development, but bringing a person to action in terms of understanding their financial needs is a unique and special skill that does not come from a 4-year university degree. So just remember, what you have as people is what makes the difference. So we got to maintain a bit of a balanced view to this as we approach it. It's often difficult to take time to look at some of the big picture issues like succession of your practice, how you handle regulation today and how you're going to handle regulation in the future. And hopefully this session and some of my comments will provide you with a little bit of insight. With that, I want to get on with my discussion topic here today. And when I read the agenda and looked at what I was supposed to speak to, I read that paragraph about 6 times and tried to figure out what exactly it meant. Then I decided I'm just going to talk about what I want to talk about. But I am going to speak to globalization of financial services, and in particular financial services regulation. I'm going to tell you right now that, in short, my position is that rules are required for regulation. We just have to decide whose rules we want them to be. And that's what I'll speak to today. Rules are required in any industry to be effective. Then you got to decide whose rules they'll be. So the issues I'll speak to is, what do we mean by globalization? And I went on the internet to figure out what it meant myself. Consider how distribution regulation is evolving in Canada. That's very important. Think about how globalization is impacting financial services in total, but more so prudential regulation. And finally, I want to speak to the potential of these international distribution regulatory models, like the one in the UK, the Financial Services Authority. What's the likelihood of that becoming our model? What are the risks? What might the benefits be? In the minister's words, we have to think about rules-based regulation is a response to bad behavior, so how do we handle that issue? So I'm going to go through a little bit of analytics here, just speaking to what do we mean by globalization. And to start with, I went onto the website investorwords.com, and the definition of globalization there is the process of increasing the connectivity and interdependence of the world's markets and businesses. So what we're talking about is we live here in Canada, but we live in a broader continent, North America, and we live in a global world. And globalization is here to stay. And think about it in the context of things like free trade, NAFTA and the EU, in terms of the trade rules developed around the free flow of goods and services. Think about anti-money laundering and airport security. What's that? Those are 2 examples of global responses to threats, terrorism in particular. Think about the Kyoto Accord and the World Health Organization H1N1 response, which we're all dealing with. I don't know who has had their shot. I've had mine. Arm still hurts. Those are 2 examples to what I would refer to as environmental threats. And I will speak to that point as we go through this. Globalization of regulation will not be because it's interesting, will not be because it's a fascinating idea. It will be because there's a view that there is a threat there that needs to be addressed. Looking at financial services in Canada, it's clear that globalization has already occurred on the market side. Many large insurers have gone national, international, many international insurers have come into Canada. The question is, will financial services regulation go global, and what will its impact be on us? I want to speak to a little bit of history just to sort of set the stage for what I mean by globalization of regulation and where we've really come from. And if you think about Canadian financial services regulation over history and think about pre-2000, I would assert that we viewed risks as a national issue and our regulations matched that. We would have looked to the US and we would have said, well, they're a far more aggressive and a higher risk continent. We sometimes viewed the US as a leading indicator. So we might say, well, looking out years ahead, maybe they're a leading indicator. The UK, I would say we studied the United Kingdom and the FSA with interest, but we viewed their regulations as more extreme regulations for very unique situations that they have. We viewed ourselves as different. Think about post-2000 and the impact of 9/11 on our world. 9/11 changed the view to moving away from a national view to at least a global view, if not a global view, starting to look at it on the basis of a continental view. Consider the US regulation around the Spitzer inquiry into sales practices. Where before had you seen that having a direct influence within 6 months on the creation of a regulation, or at least a practice that we had to put in place around advisor disclosure? Direct impact. We still continue to look at the UK model and say, well, they're different, they've got different issues, they had their pension mis-selling, and we're different than them. Now look at today. The market meltdown in 2008 and 2009 was truly a global event and viewed as a global threat to company balance sheets, a global threat to actual country economies, and the question is whether global regulation will and should come into play. Before I go into asserting where I think we're going to go, you got to remember that there's differences in sectors, differences in geographies and cultures, and there's differences in regulatory history. If you think about sector differences, banking is mainly concerned with asset and consumer credit default. That's their concern. The insurance companies are mainly concerned about long-tail liabilities and corporate credit risk, two very different sectors. If you think about geographies, consider the larger and more competitive US economy where they have to consider state-specific issues.